Assalamu alaikum. Power to the people. Greetings, brothers and sisters. As I mentioned, I will read a few more verses or chapter of my autobiography. This is still the first chapter, and the name of my autobiography is Revolutionary Gangsters. So I'm going to give you a little more taste tonight, and I'm going to read a few paragraphs, inshallah, starting from where I left off. Excuse me, because this muffles my voice too much, and I don't need to wear this because there ain't no bacteria up in here, and I ain't afraid to show my face. I done paid for my crimes, more than enough. Okay, this is where we left off. In the car, George turned around in the front seat looking in the back. First at Jamel, who was sitting directly behind Pringle, the driver. George said, "Jamel, you ready, young blood?" Jamel gave his famous smile of confidence and said, "Right on." Jamel was 18 years in age, tall, medium built, light-skinned, and handsome. Jamel was always cool and smooth. He was a very intelligent brother with a happy spirit. He was a serious warrior, but he could always flash that spontaneous, carefree, don't give a shit about the odds or danger smile. No matter what type of shit was about to go down, that was Jamel, always cool and very sure about himself, and wanted everyone around him to know it. George turned from Jamel to look at the brother sitting in the middle of the back seat. That was Raheem. Raheem was 20 years in age, a little shorter and heavier than Jamel. He was dark-skinned, with a rugged face that made him appear older than he was. Raheem was cool and laid back. He was a thinker. Sometimes he got lost in his own deep thoughts, and someone would have to bring him back to the present reality. Raheem would deal with any situation righteously. As George looked directly at Raheem, he just said, "Ra." Raheem quickly replied, "I was just thinking, the revolution will not be televised, and we're about to make revolutionary history right now." Jamel, Raheem, and I were Black Panthers. Jamel and Raheem had known each other since they were little kids. They grew up together on the same block as best friends. They did everything together and were tighter than tight. I met Jamel and Raheem about 2 years before this morning of October 16, 1970. I introduced them both to the party, the Black Panther Party for self-defense. They quickly joined the party and became righteous members like myself. Of all the Panthers at our chapter and throughout the New York City area, Jamel and Raheem were my closest companions and very best comrades, and I was the same to them. It was just like I had grew up with Jamel and Raheem. The three of us were tighter than tight. We had already experienced a lot of heavy shit together, and all the drama made our bond deeper than deep. In the party, the Black Panther Party, we showed and proved our intelligence, courage, and resourcefulness, and it was recognized. We were revolutionary warriors, the vanguards of the people. We didn't just talk revolution and giving power to the people. We made revolution happen and gave power to the people by our committed and bold actions. Huey P. Newton, the Minister of Defense of the Black Panther Party, taught us that real Panthers are dedicated revolutionaries that unite theory with practice and unite ideas with practice, by applying those ideas. And that's what we were about. George looked at me, sitting up erect behind him. I knew George could detect that I was anxious, even though I was expressionless and appeared real cool. George was very good at reading body language and facial expressions. He knew it wasn't about fear, it was about control and power. To me, that was the ultimate high. When I pulled my gun out on the stick-up and ordered people older than me, people of the establishment, especially the white, arrogant racists who I viewed as dogs and pigs, when I ordered them to freeze or put their hands up or lay down with their face kissing the floor or move where I wanted them to and to do exactly as I ordered them to do, that was control. That was a rush to my head, pointing my gun in the direction of people who I considered the enemy. I knew I wouldn't have to think twice about shooting or killing anyone if necessary. My objective in stick-ups was to sting the enemy and make them pay. With my gun in hand, I could feel the power, knowing I controlled their fate of life or death during those moments. That was a power that gave me a great thrill. That was my high. George told me, GB, your nose is wide open. I know you're hyped and ready to sting. My reply was simply, right on, let's do it. George was a medium-built black man, age 44. He was in tip-top shape and was very serious about exercising daily. He would do hundreds of push-ups and sit-ups, as well as jumping jacks, jump rope, and running. George was a military man. He had been a sergeant in the Army. He was a professional boxer for a short time. Then he started earning his livelihood as a professional jazz musician, playing his guitar with different people and sets across the USA, as well as doing hustles and stick-ups along the way. George was about 5'9" tall with dark brown skin complexion. He had a baby face that he always kept completely clean. He didn't appear to be older than 30, and he kept his hair on his head cut short in a Caesar style. As George opened the front passenger door, stepped out of the Impala, he adjusted the very short, sawed-off double-barreled over and under 12-gauge shotgun in his waist. It was loaded, both barrels, with double R buckshot shells. George carried 10 more buckshot shells with him, 5 in each pocket of his 3/4 length black leather jacket, just in case we had to shoot our way out the bank. It was a cool but clear skies, sunny, mid-October morning. George had his sunglasses on and was wearing a thick, fake beard and mustache. Covering his head, he had on a big, thick afro wig. Under his open leather jacket, he had on a conservative shirt and tie to complement his dress slacks and shoes. He really looked like a different person to me, in total disguise. At 16 years of age, I was about 5'10", maybe 5'11" inches tall, and weighed about 165 pounds. My brown skin complexion was clear and smooth. I didn't have any hair growing on my face, except for a slight shadow above my upper lip that I could hardly call peach fuzz. I had been called baby face, Mr. Handsome, pretty boy by my peers. One of my very conceited, fly girlfriends once confided with me candidly, saying, "Do you know you're as pretty as me? And that is as pretty gets." With all that in mind, I decided to disguise myself for this bank robbery by wearing a woman's wig makeup, powder on my face, with big dark sunglasses on, and hoping that I could pass for a female. That was something I had to give deep thought about when it was first suggested to me, because I'm not gay, never have been, never will be. At that time, I had a real dislike for any type of queers, be they faggots, lesbians, or dykes. I considered myself a professional stick-up artist, and as an artist, disguises were among the tools of my profession, and extreme jobs sometimes demanded extreme tools, more or less. That's the way my main girl, my number one Ramona, had suggested and expounded on it the night before. The night before the morning, October 16th, 1970, I was at home in my basement of my parents' house, which was my panther pad, with Ramona. The basement wasn't professionally finished. I had cleaned and hooked it up and made it into a nice panther den. I had a big king-size bed down there with a large wooden headboard. I was making love to Ramona on that bed when I realized my mother kept calling me from the door at the top of the stairs. I heard Mom holler, "Gee, this is the last time I'm calling you. Jamel is on the phone and says it's urgent." I told Mom to tell him I'd pick up the phone in a minute. Ramona was so hot and wet. She had me acting like a wild man on her, but I tried to pull out and get up to pick up the phone. Ramona wouldn't let me. She had strong, long, pretty red bone legs wrapped around my back. She kept me locked down. She compelled me to work with her hard and fast until I exploded inside her. She finally unlocked me and I pulled out and got up. As I quickly got dressed and glanced at Ramona laying naked on the bed, she was a picture of beauty that I would never forget. She had the perfect body. I looked at her pretty face. Her lovely almond-shaped brown eyes had a dreamy, ethereal look. Her mouth was slightly open with a smile. At that moment, I fully realized as much pleasure as I got from my climax, it seemed like she had got even more. She was clearly in a state of euphoria and ecstasy. When I went upstairs and picked up the phone on the other side of the receiver, I could hear music playing in the background. James Brown was screaming over his band as I greeted Jamel with "Power to the people." Jamel's voice was excited, and he instantly complained about waiting over 10 minutes for me to pick up the phone. He asked me what took me so long after my mother called me. I told him that I was busy in the basement with Ramona. Jamel just started saying he thinks Ramona has my nose so wide open that a tractor trailer could drive through it. He said he hadn't seen me so strung out on one girl since I was with Giovanna. He added that he knows I'm really still strung on Giovanna, and Ramona is just a substitute right now. I told Jamel that Ramona is top choice and she's my number one girl, 'cause she is a sweetheart in every sense of the word. I briefly explained my love affair with Giovanna was history, and the only love I still have for Giovanna was for her as a panther and comrade in arms. Giovanna was still my Black Panther sister. Jamel changed the subject and told me George was back in town. He said George had a big job planned for us tomorrow, and he wanted Raheem, Jamel, and me to meet him at a safe house in 2 hours to discuss the details of the job. I looked up at the clock on the kitchen wall. It was 7 p.m. I wanted to see George kick it and hang out with him, but I really wasn't interested in doing a stick-up at that time, not even a big one, unless the Black Panther party at our chapter needed an urgent flow of cash. And at that time, they didn't. In fact, my captain, Big John Thomas, told me to be cool for a while and go back to school. Brothers and sisters, I went a little bit further than I intended. That's a little bit more of a preview of the first chapter of my autobiography, and hopefully it will be published soon. And until it is, I may decide to read a few more paragraphs in the first chapter, and I hope that you find it interesting and entertaining. And you can give me feedback if you want, and if not, it's all good. All right? So, once again, that's it for tonight. Don't forget the name, Revolutionary Gangsters. Okay? Revolutionary Gangster. And with that, I wish the best for everybody. Stay safe. Okay? Be around human beings and keep the beast back. With that, I say, Salam alaikum wa rahmatullah barakatuh to my brothers, to my sisters, and to those who are on the struggle and on the path. Power to the people, always.